Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be providing a market analysis on Bitcoin and crypto in general. And today I'll be looking at the crypto markets through a different lens, that is the stock market. So I'll be looking at Bitcoin's pretty close correlation to the S&P 500, what I'm noticing with the S&P 500, and my general takeaways that we can draw for crypto. So if you guys enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, by the way, check out our sponsors in the link in the description below. This channel is partnered with FTX.us. So on my chart, I have the blue line, which is going to be the S&P 500. That is scaled to the right axis. You can see right here, going from 5,000 down to 3,550. And then we have Bitcoin, which is the orange line scaled to the left axis, going from 74,000 down to 12,000. So this basically goes all the way back to June of 2021, where the correlation really started to kick in. You can see that pretty closely, where whenever the S&P was doing well and trending up, Bitcoin was also doing somewhat well. And then on these corrections, notice how that had a negative impact on Bitcoin. So you can see the blue line here started to come down. That had a negative impact on Bitcoin. We had that correction down from around $51,000 to around $41,000. And it's been that way pretty consistently, where when the S&P does correct, that has typically led Bitcoin to lower prices. And I'll just circle all of these times here just so you can see that it has been a fairly consistent trend throughout the last year or so. And what we're looking at today is the stock market is really starting to come back down to these lows after a pretty incredible move, approximately 20% off the lows to this level around $4,300. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to switch over to the S&P just isolated, because I really want to take a dive into this move and look at this very key level ranging from around $3,900 to around $3,928. So when I'm looking at this level, I'm noticing that this was previously support back in May. That was our first real interaction here. We had that bounce off of it. You can see we bounced around to around 4,100. And then later on, we actually came back below it, flipped it into resistance, right? So you can see that rejection right there in the later part of June, another rejection right here later on in July, came back above it, flipped it into support. So a lot of interactions around this level, oscillating from support to resistance back to support. You can see another bounce off support right here in the end of August. We had that lower high formed. Now we're back below it. And I'm going to zoom in here just so you guys can see this has been a pretty significant and definitive rejection right here. So we've come back below it. We had this candle coming up, trying to get back, rejected. Okay, so this is a rejection. We're flipping this back into resistance. And to me, it really does look like we're going to have a run back down to the lows. It just looks like we've had a pretty classic support into resistance flip. And it really would look like the momentum is going to carry us down into this lower $3,600 area. And that's really just a observation around this horizontal support and resistance zone. If the stock market can actually come back above this and then say hypothetically reclaim it, flip it into support, then that really does change the dynamic of this. But for me personally, I really start to look at this as a clear rejection, and I would start to target down towards this area, which if we're looking back over here, anytime the stock market has made lower lows, that has historically not been good for Bitcoin and crypto. And if we're going over here to Bitcoin, it's a pretty similar story. We've had this support level defined around 19K. You can see several bounces off of this, right? We've had this bounce in June, another one July, later on in July, and then another bounce here in September. We're really starting to lose this area. We haven't definitively lost it yet. You could argue that, maybe this is a fake out. We could come back above it and then flip it back into support. That's perfectly reasonable, but something like this would be very difficult for Bitcoin to do if the S&P continues lower. And by this resistance flip, it really does look to me that we are going to continue this downtrend. And especially considering the fact that with Bitcoin, it is really starting to look like we are losing this $19,000 area of previous support. And if Bitcoin does start to consolidate and then form resistance off this area, I think there is a very, very likely scenario that we do get another leg down. Now, that being said, if you've been following my channel and my videos, I think that in general, Bitcoin for a multi-year perspective, anywhere under 20K is going to be looked back upon as a phenomenal opportunity. So I want to be clear that any dip down lower, on any leg down lower, I will be accumulating more and I will be sort of adding to my longer term position. But I do have to consider that, the fact that the S&P is really starting to look like it is going to have a retest of its lows really to me looks like that similarity would happen with Bitcoin as well, with the correlation here just being very strong. Anytime the S&P has had a lower low, Bitcoin has also had one. So I don't really see a scenario in which this has a decorrelation, or at least in the short term, because of how everything is centered right now around, interest rates, the US dollar rallying, all of those sorts of things. I think that with Bitcoin, there is a very real possibility that we do have a leg lower in the next few weeks or the next few months, especially with the S&P starting to look down to those lower levels. Now, that being said, again, if we can have a reclaim of this region, I would expect that Bitcoin would have a similar reclaim of the 19K area, and then we would have potentially some support being held off these lows. But until that happens, I really do have to consider the fact that there does seem to be a very real possibility that we will be retesting these lows around 17.5K, and then from there potentially a move lower depending on what the stock market is doing. So I hope you guys did enjoy the content and the analysis. By the way, make sure to check out our sponsors in the link in the description below. This channel is partnered with FTX.us. As always, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.